Am I the asshole for telling my mom that her husband is just the guy she cheated on my dad with? When I was about 10 years old, my whole world kind of collapsed overnight. My parents' marriage didn't just fade away quietly, it blew up in the ugliest way possible. My mom was having an affair, and it wasn't some hidden secret that I accidentally overheard one day. No, I knew exactly what was going on because the drama unfolded right in front of me. The man she was cheating with wasn't even single, he was married too. And his wife, well, she wasn't about to suffer in silence. She came to our house more than once, pounding on the door, screaming at the top of her lungs about everything that happened. I remember standing in my room, frozen, listening to every word echo through the walls. Her voice carried so much anger and pain that it was impossible to pretend I didn't understand. This wasn't some vague, confusing, adult problem that I was too young to understand. No, I understood exactly what was happening, because the woman screamed it loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. I remember one night in particular. Her voice pierced through the walls, shrill and furious, carrying words that no child should ever have to hear. You're sleeping with my husband. Do you have no shame? He has a family. You ruined everything. I stood frozen in the hallway, my little hands clenched tight, wishing I could cover my ears but not able to pull away. The words hit like darts, each one more painful than the last. She shouted about how my dad was being betrayed, how our family was built on lies, how my mom and her husband had destroyed not just one marriage but two. The neighbors all knew, how could they not? Windows flicked with light as people peeked out from behind curtains. Doors cracked open cautiously down the street. Our house wasn't just a home anymore, it was a spectacle, the stage for someone else's heartbreak broadcast to the entire block. And it didn't stop at yelling. Every time she showed up, chaos followed. I remember red and blue lights flashing against my bedroom window as police cars pulled up. Uniformed officers would step between the screaming woman and my mom, trying to defuse the situation. Sometimes it took 2 officers to guide her back to her car, kicking and shouting as she was pulled away. For most kids, the sound of sirens might mean excitement, curiosity. For me, it became a soundtrack of shame, a reminder that my life, my family, had been cracked open for the world to see. So no, I wasn't naive. I wasn't protected. I wasn't shielded. Every scream, every slur, every sob told me exactly what was happening. My mom had shattered my family, and everyone within earshot knew it too. For a 10-year-old, moments like that stick with you permanently. I couldn't unhear it, I couldn't unsee the cops outside my house, I couldn't pretend nothing was happening. So no, I wasn't clueless. I didn't just have a feeling. I knew exactly what had gone down, and I knew my mom was the reason everything in my world was suddenly upside down. From the day the divorce papers were signed, my relationship with mom felt like walking across a field of shattered glass, painful, tentative, and impossibly tense. She kept insisting that life would settle down, but her new reality included the man who had helped blow our family apart. He moved in within months, lugging his boxes and forced smiles into the house as if he could redecorate the memories right off the walls. Almost immediately he tried slipping into the empty chair my dad once filled. He offered to drive me to soccer practice, showed up at school for parent-teacher night, even tried to give me advice about boys like we were starring in some wholesome after-school special. Every gesture felt like a fresh splinter. I remember one Saturday morning when he knocked on my bedroom door holding 2 steaming mugs of cocoa. Figured we could have a little father-daughter talk, he said, like the words tasted sweet to him. I set the mug on my nightstand, untouched, and answered as evenly as a 12-year-old could, I already have a dad. You're not it. He kept circling back, relentless in his friendliness. When I made the honor roll in 8th grade, he suggested we celebrate, as a family, at my favorite pizza place. I told Mom I'd rather eat cardboard. By freshman year he tried to ground me for missing curfew. I laughed in his face and called my real dad to pick me up. Each attempt only tightened the knot of resentment in my chest. Maybe Mom hoped time would file the edges off the truth, but every polite smile he offered reminded me he'd helped tear our home in half. Yes, Mom had chosen him, her betrayal was her own, but watching him audition for the role of parent felt like letting the arsonist join the fire brigade. So I kept the boundary razor sharp. Anytime he started a sentence with, "as your father" figure, I cut him off. "Stop. I have a father. You are my mother's husband, nothing more." The word stung him, I could see it in the way his jaw tightened. But that wound was the price of admission for stepping into a life he'd helped fracture. And no matter how many school plays he attended or how many birthday candles he lit, he never. When I was 19, my world cracked wide open for the second time, only this time, there was no fixing it. My dad passed away. Even though we had known his health was declining, nothing can prepare you for the finality of death. Doctors had warned us, there had been hospital visits and tired sighs, but in the back of my mind I always believed I had more time. You always believe you do. And then the phone rang. I can still hear it. That sharp, ordinary sound that suddenly became the marker of my life being divided in two, before and after. I picked it up, my heart pounding in this strange, irregular rhythm, and then I heard the words that didn't feel real. "He's gone." Just 2 words, but they sliced me open. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed, the phone slipping slightly in my sweaty palm. My eyes locked on the floor, but I wasn't really seeing it. The world around me blurred, as if everything was fading out, sound and color draining away until I was stuck in this hollow place in my own head. How could the person who had been my anchor, the steady force keeping me tethered through all the chaos of my childhood, just not exist anymore? He'd been the one constant in a storm of betrayal, yelling, police lights, and slammed doors. And now that anchor had been cut loose. I was adrift. For a long while, I didn't move. I didn't even cry at first. I just sat there, phone still in my hand, with this heavy numbness pressing me down like bricks on my chest. And then, slowly, the tears came, hot at first, then endless, blurring everything until my room became nothing but moving shadows and streaks of light. It was the kind of crying that doesn't release anything, the kind that leaves you feeling emptier after it's done. That night I curled up on my bed, clutching my pillow like it was some kind of lifeline. The reality that my dad, my safe place, my protector, my link to the family I once had, was gone, it was unbearable. And though people say grief softens with time, in that moment time itself felt useless, meaningless. Because all I wanted, all that would make sense again, was impossible. I just wanted my dad back. When it came time for the funeral, the decision not to tell my mom wasn't casual or impulsive. It was deliberate. I pictured her walking in dressed in black, holding the hand of the man I blamed for tearing my family apart, and it made my stomach twist. That image felt like a second betrayal, like a cruel shadow being cast over my final goodbye to Dad. This was supposed to be sacred, our moment to honor him, and the idea of her showing up with her husband felt like it would poison the air. So, I kept it to myself. The funeral came and went without her. It was quiet, painful, intimate. My grandpa wept harder than I'd ever seen, family circled close, and I got to mourn without that gnawing rage I knew I'd feel if Mom had been there with him. Of course, secrets don't stay hidden forever. My mom eventually found out about the funeral, and when she did, it was like a bomb went off. She stormed into my apartment unannounced, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Her face was flushed, her hands trembling, whether from fury or heartbreak I couldn't tell. "How dare you not tell me," she shouted, her voice breaking, but not from grief, from outrage. It was as if I had committed the crime, not her. She glared at me like I'd betrayed her, like I'd done something unforgivable. "You robbed me of the chance to be there for you," she raged, pacing across the room. "You denied him," she jabbed her finger in the air, as if her husband were standing right there beside her, "the opportunity to support you, like a real dad should." Her words hung heavy in the air, cruel and absurd all at once. My jaw almost dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My dad had just been laid in the ground, the man she betrayed, the one person I felt truly safe with, and she was angry about missing her moment? Angry that her husband, the man who helped destroy my family, wasn't allowed to step into my father's most sacred space? In her world, I owed it to them, owed them the right to stand at my father's grave and act like they belonged there, owed them inclusion in the one moment that still connected me to my dad. But in my world, their presence would have erased the only thing I had left, a pure goodbye. A funeral without contamination. Without resentment boiling in my stomach. Without having to look over and see him standing where my dad should have been. I took a breath, my voice low but steady. You don't get it, I told her. That day wasn't about you. It wasn't about him. It was about Dad. My goodbye to him. And if he had come, that moment would have been ruined. Her face darkened, her mouth pressed into a hard line, but I didn't waver. For once, I had said out loud what I had always wanted to. I didn't owe them my grief. My grief belonged to me and to my father, and no one could take that from me. The truth was simple, their support was the last thing I wanted. In that moment, the only arms I needed were the ones that would never hold me again. Even after everything that had happened, my mom kept clinging to this unrealistic fantasy. It was like, in her mind, the moment my dad was gone, the door magically opened for her husband to step into his shoes, to transform from the guy who broke up my parents' marriage into this shiny, new father figure. She acted like grief was supposed to erase all the history, all the resentment, and just leave me ready to accept him. She would drop little hints constantly, planting the idea as if repetition might make it true. If I mentioned how much I missed Dad, she'd say things like, well, you still have someone who can be there for you. He's ready to be the father you need. The year after my dad died, Father's Day crept up on me like a bruise you forget about until you bump it again. It was already a hard day, the kind that gnawed at me from the inside, reminding me of the calls I'd never make, the visits I'd never have, the words I'd never hear again. I tried to treat it like any other Sunday, sitting at the dinner table with my mom and her husband, quietly picking at my food. And then my mom spoke, casual at first, like it was just another suggestion about groceries or chores. She said, glancing at him with this soft little smile, maybe we should do something special tonight. Make it a Father's Day dinner, for him. She said it so lightly, as if those words weren't heavy enough to crush me. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth, staring at her in silence. My mind screamed, did she really just say that? Does she honestly not see how insulting, how impossible, that is? I looked at her, then at him, sitting there, shoulders squared, pretending not to smirk but clearly basking in what he thought was some moment of validation. Maybe he thought I'd nod along, maybe he thought this was his chance to be accepted. Instead, all I felt was a surge of disbelief. It was almost surreal, like the world had tilted sideways. Inside my head, the words tumbled over each other. He cannot take that place. He will never take that place. My dad is gone, but that doesn't make him the substitute. This isn't a torch you can just pass on in a family ceremony over pasta and wine. I set the fork down slowly, choosing silence over the explosion of anger sitting hot in my throat. But the weight of that moment clung to me. She truly, genuinely did not see the truth. He wasn't my dad, he could never be my dad, and suggesting we celebrate him on that day of all days felt like trying to erase the man I loved most from his own story. It wasn't just words, either. Her husband started acting the part more loudly than before. He'd introduce me to people as my stepdaughter, who I raised since she was 10, like he'd earned a badge for showing up. At family gatherings, he'd try to give me these knowing looks or unsolicited bits of advice, as if he now had some moral authority over me. Each time it happened, it made my skin crawl. I wasn't looking for another dad, especially not in him. But my mom couldn't let it go. She was determined to rewrite the story in her head, that her husband had stepped into this noble role, that with Dad gone all I had to do was accept it. To her, it was the perfect, happy ending. But to me? It felt insulting. My dad wasn't a role to be filled, like a job opening after someone quits. He was irreplaceable, and no amount of pretending would ever change that. So yeah, no way. Not happening then, not happening ever. Fast forward to my wedding. If there was ever a day that symbolized family and love, it was supposed to be that one. I had pictured it so many times over the years, the dress, the flowers, my grandpa proudly walking me down the aisle, standing in for the dad I had lost. It wasn't even a question in my mind. Of course it would be him. He'd been a rock in my life, someone who never betrayed me, who never left me with doubts about where his loyalty was. But in my mom's mind? In her version of my wedding, her husband was front and center. She pictured him proudly taking my arm, giving me away, stealing all the father of the bride moments as if it were his birthright. She never even asked me, she just assumed. She acted like it was obvious, like it was already decided. When the truth came out, when she found out I had asked my grandpa instead, the explosion was immediate. I'll never forget the look on her face, a mix of shock, rage, and wounded pride. "What the hell are you thinking?" she snapped at me one afternoon over the phone, her voice rising so fast it felt like she was about to scream. "He's been there for you since you were 10. He deserves this." I remember standing in my kitchen, phone pressed against my ear, my hands shaking, but not with fear. With anger. Years and years of bitterness that I had shoved down finally boiled over in one sentence. I took a breath, and then I said it. Cold, sharp, final. "He's not my dad. He's just the guy you cheated on him with. Nothing more." There was silence on the other end for a moment, as if my words had actually stunned her into stillness. And then came the hysterics, accusations that I was cruel, that I was vindictive, that I couldn't see how much effort her husband had put in all these years. She said I was trying to punish them, trying to cling to the past, refusing to move on. But to me, it wasn't punishment at all. It was honesty. It was a line in the sand. This was my wedding, my choice, my life, and no matter how much she tried to rewrite history, he was never going to be my father. Not in the past, not in the present, not ever. Yeah, things went nuclear after that. My mom called me childish and vindictive, told me I need to get over it, and even said I was just punishing them for the affair. According to her, it had nothing to do with me. I told her flat out, this isn't punishment. These are just the consequences of her choices. And the sad truth? She and her husband will have to deal with that for the rest of their lives. The day of my wedding finally arrived, and despite all the drama leading up to it, I woke up feeling determined. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my mom, steal this day from me. I slipped into my dress, surrounded by bridesmaids and laughter, and for the first time in a long time, I felt light. Nervous, yes, but happy. My grandpa came in to see me before the ceremony, his eyes watering the moment he saw me. "You look just like your grandma did on our wedding day," he whispered, voice cracking. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice 1,000 times over. But not everyone felt that way. I could sense my mom's tension the second I entered the chapel lobby. She had that tight smile, lips pressed together, the kind of smile that said, "I'm furious but holding it in because people are watching." And right beside her, like always, stood her husband, in a crisp suit with a smug look that made my skin crawl. He glanced at me like he was expecting me to change my mind at the last minute, as if maybe I'd say, "Oh, of course, please walk me down the aisle, you've earned it." But when the music started, and I slipped my arm around my grandpa's, the truth hit the room like a lightning bolt. My mom's face twisted, I could see it out of the corner of my eye, and her husband's jaw tightened, his smile faltering as we started walking. The whispers among relatives followed us down the aisle like a soft rustling wind. People knew. They saw. And honestly, for once, I didn't care. I held my grandpa's arm tighter, proud and unashamed. Every step felt like reclaiming something, like honoring Dad in the only way I could. My grandpa's hand trembled against mine, but not from nerves, from pride. When he placed my hand into my fiancé's, he gave it one last squeeze, his eyes shining. During the reception, the tension finally spilled over. Mom cornered me near the back of the hall, dragging me away from the crowd just far enough for the mask to slip. Her voice was low, but sharp enough to cut glass. "You humiliated him. You humiliated me. How could you do this, on your wedding day?" I didn't flinch. Not this time. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was the relief of the day finally coming together, but I looked her dead in the eye and said, "This day wasn't about you. Or him. It was about me, about Dad, and about the family that actually stood by me. If that hurts, that's not my fault. Those are the choices you made years ago. You don't get to rewrite history today." She stared at me like she didn't even recognize me, then stormed off, dragging her husband behind her. The rest of the night? Honestly? Perfect. Our first dance, the cake, the laughter, the clinking glasses, it was everything I wanted. And when I looked out at the crowd, I saw love. Real, unconditional love. The kind my dad gave me. The kind my grandpa had carried for me. The kind I was starting my marriage with. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. It's been months since the wedding, and the fallout is still hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. My mom hasn't let it go. She's still furious, cycling between icy silence and passive-aggressive texts about how I disrespected her husband, how I embarrassed them, how I've held on to bitterness for too long. Her husband doesn't say anything directly to me, but according to a cousin, he plays the wounded martyr whenever the topic comes up. Apparently, I robbed him of a moment he earned. Earned. That word makes me laugh, bitterly. He wants credit for stepping into a role he never had a right to in the first place. But here's the truth, I don't regret saying what I said. For years, I swallowed my anger, kept my boundaries polite, tried not to cause scenes. At my wedding, on my day, I wasn't going to swallow it anymore. I needed to draw the line once and for all. Do I admit it was harsh? Absolutely. The words cut, and I knew they would. But sometimes the truth is sharp like that. And in my heart, I still believe I wasn't being cruel, I was being honest. Brutally honest, maybe, but honest all the same. Because no matter how many years pass, no matter how hard my mom tries to rewrite our history, the reality of our relationship doesn't change. He is not my dad. He will never be my dad. He is, and always will be, just the man she cheated with. So now here I am, asking, does that make me the asshole? Or does it just make me someone who refused to let her mother's mistakes be painted over with a fresh coat of lies? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.